Mcdonald. Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I have a girl I've known for so long, hilarious, writer, comedian, podcast host, wife, mother, and now author, Natasha Leggero. The world deserves my children. Let's bring this up right here. Looking stunning.
Oh,
gorgeous.
Thank you. This was me during the pandemic.
Absolutely. She's wearing a lovely red dress. You guys know Natasha. She's worked on so many things. She also was a regular panelist on Chelsea Lately. We knew each other from Pretty Funny Women shows way back
my
when.
God. Wait, that's how we started knowing each other?
That's the first time I think I was introduced to you, is maybe watching you on stage when we did a show together.
I forgot about that. I just recently did like a Zoom.
I just remember one of my funniest jokes one of your funniest jokes that I saw is one thing about Natasha. She's really beautiful and she totally dresses up to do stand up and would wear like these classic beautiful outfits and kind of had like this funny. You have a very funny persona, but a very unique point of view and cadence to your style and jokes, which I love. But one time you were doing stand up and you look down at this guy and you go, "Don't worry, sir. I don't find women funny either."
I mean, that was a joke that I would do a lot.
I love that
And I would
joke.
always pick some guy in the audience.
That was miserable.
Well, it was like, I think I actually did it in Europe. And the woman sitting in the front row, this was like in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
She was like, said very loudly, this is at a TV taping. She was like, "If she don't think women are funny, why is she on the stage?" And I was like, I can hear you. Like, it was just, you know how you have all those reactions. You have to be ready to react.
Yes.
Because it's like people are like heckling and as a woman and it was always hard. I don't know. Maybe it's better for women now.
Yes.
I feel like we paved the way for
we
girls
made it
to have like
so much better.
a better time on stage.
We made it so much better, as women paved it for us too. But yeah, now it's a great situation. But I also loved how you would be like, "I come from a servantless household."
Well, my dream was to like be above my social class.
Okay.
That was kind of like, how like male comics want to like marry above their like level, like they want to date out of their league.
No, I didn't know that. Is that a thing that you've noticed among male comics?
Have you not noticed that a lot of male comedians we know have like gorgeous child brides?
Oh, yes, like a Dane Cook.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of them. Like, have you not noticed that most male comedians have a woman that's way too hot for them?
Yes, I know. I mean, when I think of like Bert Kreischer and his wife have been together forever, and she's beautiful, but they're a match.
Well, I'm not going to name names. I think
Tom Segura and Christina are like a match.
Well, you're mentioning some like very solid couples.
I think Moshe is obviously below you, your husband. So I agree with you there.
Well,
clearly married out of his league.
I'm telling you this because I wanted to, date out of my social class.
Okay.
I wanted to be out of my social class. So yes, servantless household.
I love that you thought of that because I wish I had thought of that more. I look at now
What's your background?
I'm just middle class. My parents did go to college and they were realtors, and I grew up in a house. I bought the house next door to my parents. They're no longer alive, but I bought the house next door, which made having the kids so easy. With
and
my
they
parents
just helped
helping.
you with the baby?
Yeah, I could not every day or anything because my parents were like a little bit older and they still like worked, but definitely like could drop them off while I grocery shopped or
amazing.
And then I would like get those blueberry muffins from Costco and give them half because you don't want 12 blueberry muffins. And I mean, no, all that stuff. And then when we bought the house, our house was old and needed all this work, and we didn't have a pool, but they did, which I loved because our kids were little, so you don't want a pool when your kids are little, And then we had a gate that we could walk right through and use their pool all those years.
By the way, that's how it's supposed to be.
I know, it's the best. I feel bad for people that don't have grandparents.
No one has what you're saying. Like, you're basically talking about a small village, which is what I want to raise my child in. Like, I would like to, like, share meal preparations. Like, I'd like to make dinner, like, once a week. And then for like 6 people. Or
you really just need to be a lesbian for that, because that's where it takes a village, where like the women all help the women with the babies.
Well,
that could be nice.
It's definitely hard that we all have our own little homes and our own, having to just do everything on our own. But yes, I definitely wanted to be outside of my social class. And I think your parents going to college, that's a big thing, because my parents didn't go to college.
Okay.
But my mom, she almost finished, but she didn't. And then my dad was like a used car dealer.
Okay. So you were just kind of like middle class.
I'd say working class.
Okay. But no, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I always thought that was like, I never knew that like, I never knew anybody where the parents would give them a huge down payment for their house.
Oh, right.
Like, that's not what I knew. Like, you get a job and then you try to get a house when you're married, and then not until like in the last 10 years did I start to meet people where they're like, well, the house is in the trust.
Oh,
and the
know.
house is in, and I'm like,
how mad does that make you?
Who are these people? Like, I didn't even know that. And now I'm like, oh, well, of course, if there's generational wealth and there's been 8 generations of your family in America, yeah, I guess you would be, and everyone did pretty well, and no one,
You're living off the interest of your trust.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not even touching your trust.
Yeah. So I didn't know people like that or anything. But,
Are you going to give your kids money?
I mean, there is times where I'm like, come on, like, I can afford to get you a tutor. Could you just please go to the tutor? Like, I do say that. Like, I'm like, a lot of kids can't get this, so stop. And, ask for the help if you need it, because we actually can give it to you.
Yeah, but what about giving them, when you die, like a lot of money?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a lot of money, and I plan on living to like very old. So,
How old?
I'd like to live to like
90?
I think 90's good. The 80s aren't great, but I think at least
90
until 80. At least till 80, at least.
I used to beg Jen Kirkman if we could just like, once we become, well, now it's becoming closer to our age, so maybe it's not as nice. But like, I was like, when we're in our 60s, we should just live in Manhattan. And
Yes.
like go out, because like I feel like old women are kind of like glamorized in Manhattan, and
Yes.
there's so much stuff for them to do. You can like go to the opera and go to the theater every night and have season passes at the symphony, and there's just so much. You could go to the premiere. You have to have money.
Right.
You got a doorman.
Well, I never lived in New York for any period of time. Sometimes there'd be little things I'd be up for, like a talk show or something.
Right.
And I'd be like, I mean, what's the chance of me getting this? But if I did, well, how would I do that with 2 little kids and a stepdaughter? Like, what would I do? And I said, if I ever get the chance to do anything in New York, I hope it's in my 50s when my kids are older, because I think in your 50s with some money in Manhattan is the perfect thing.
Ooh,
because you
that
can
sounds
go to
nice.
the dinners and the plays and stuff, and you can have like a chic place, and that's when you want to do it. Like, I never wanted to live there when I was going to be like 24 and like starving. Like, no.
But you've got like the ultimate status symbol, which is adult children. Like, we're the same age, probably. My kids, like, I'm going to be like 60 when she's starting high school or something.
Can you say how old you were when you gave birth?
I was 43.
Okay, do you remember when you and Moshe came to my podcast and I asked you about it? You must have already been pregnant.
Oh,
'Cause-
really?
yes, so you
What
guys-
did I say?
so
Me and Moshe did your I don't remember
I
anything.
know. You don't remember anything about me, apparently.
No, about anything. Moshe's telling me things all the time. Seriously.
Some people
I
have,
think when I gave birth, I
some
forgot
people-
everything.
Some people, like my sister, she's very smart, intelligent, wonderful attorney. But like, I can remember such details from our childhood and stuff. And she's like, I don't remember that. Sometimes I just think it's like the way your brain is, or genetic. It doesn't mean that you have Alzheimer's. It doesn't mean anything. It just means you just don't remember dumb things that don't matter. But like, I remember so much, except I just forgot what I was talking
No, you were saying that when Moshe and I did your podcast, I
Oh,
told you
okay,
how
so-
I was pregnant or something.
Okay, so then you guys came, and and you were on the show, and I don't think you hadn't started your podcast yet, but you were there to promote something.
Maybe our Netflix special.
I don't know, but it was you were both there, or I asked you to come and you were like, do you want Moshe? I'm like, totally, great. Because I knew him from Chelsea Lately being a great comedian. And I remember I was like, oh my God, I think it's kind of exciting that you guys are like this comedic duo, because there's like all these comedic duos, like I said, Tom and Christina and people like that. And I think it's so great. And then I'm like, and what about kids? Like, do you think you'll have kids? And you were like, and then I remember when you then shared it, I'm like, oh, I think they were either pregnant or maybe you were waiting to find out.
Well, I had frozen my eggs when I was 38. And so
oh, that's smart.
I did that, and that's kind of the cutoff. So hopefully people who read my book can glean that information.
Yeah.
And, the whole idea of egg freezing, like you did it a different way. And also you had support. You had parents who lived next door that you could drop your kid off. I mean, taking a kid to a grocery store in a pandemic is like a nightmare, You're like constantly like, if I run in and get milk, am I going to kill my child?
Right.
I mean, it was just like the most stressful thing. But that aside, I feel like I just got 2 extra decades to like earn money and have fun and live my life. And then having a kid in my 40s, and I think just this whole technology is so amazing for women because we can like achieve so much more now. You don't have to like have a kid with the first guy you meet at the beach,
Exactly. But like, so I was married. I got married just a couple weeks before my 30th birthday. And then, but I remember the day I went off the pill, and it was when a pilot that I didn't get picked up. So had the pilot got picked up, I definitely would have put it off.
So you
for
were
my career. My career was still coming first, but then I had like a nice nothing's gonna happen for a while. And I'm 30. I was 31 at the time, and my sister was 3.5 years. She was about 3 years older, and she was having trouble conceiving. So then I was like, well, if I have trouble conceiving, I remember somebody telling me like, oh, if you have SAG insurance, they'll pay this, 18 years ago, 20 years ago, they'll pay $8,000 worth of fertility stuff. Now, I don't know if that's still true.
Well, $8,000 won't get you as far as it did. Like my eggs cost $8,000, but now it's probably double that.
Right. Or I thought, well, at least that would cover like some inseminations. I don't know, because my sister was starting to go through it or having trouble. And I was like, all right, well, then I think maybe I just go off the pill just in case I have trouble. And then I was one of those people that never got the period, like immediately got pregnant. And then I had to tell my sister, which I was dreading.
Oh, you're like, I'm so fertile.
I know. And I felt like, and then she's like, how far along are you? And I'm like, 10 weeks. And she's like, 10 weeks? That's terrible that you felt you couldn't tell me. And I felt so bad. Anyway, she has 2 kids now, and they're old and fine. But, we've all gone through it. Either it's been easy for us or we felt guilty that it was easy for us, but everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. And if you don't have the partner and the means, but you do have enough of the means to freeze the eggs, I think it's the greatest thing that you could do. So smart. And best insurance policy ever.
Right, because my therapist called me a situational breeder. He's like, if the situation's right, you'll breed. And I was like, oh, yeah, I think that's right. Like, because I wasn't like, I think you had it in your head, right? Like, you were like, I'm going to have a family. I
always knew I wanted to have kids. Like, I was that girl that, like, played with a baby doll, like, because I was youngest of 5, and if my friend had a younger child, I was like, you've got a baby in a crib that I could like see. Like, I was obsessed. I loved to like babysit, all that. So I remember being like 27 and going, like, doing stand-up and coming home and like watching some fucking like awful Jerry Springer or something. And I remember saying, I'm going to be a mom no matter what, even if I do it alone. Like, if I don't fall in love, I'm going to be a mom no matter, like, I knew I always wanted to be a mom.
Not a situational breeder.
Yeah.
You're like in it. But so for me, I was like, I don't know if I deem someone worty of,
you're right,
blasting on one of my eggs, then perhaps I will allow it. And after I met Moshe. But what I didn't realize when you freeze your eggs, I had 8. And by the way, talk about fertile people. Like, you'll have friends who freeze them. They're like, I got 39. Like they just have so many eggs. But like, I had 8, and I thought that meant I could have 8 kids. And I was like, well, I barely want 1. But then when I finally, defrosted them, had Moshe do his thing, they did all of the genetic testing. There was only 4
that they liked, that were perfect.
There were 4, and then there was 4 after he did his thing on them.
Okay.
Then they did the genetic testing, which then there was 2, and I put one up, and it was a miscarriage. And so the only one I had was my darling, darling child.
Oh,
So-
that's so interesting because so with my sister Shannon, she went through a bunch of things, miscarriages and different things. And then it was down to 4 frozen. And she was like,
Are these embryos or eggs?
these were the embryos.
Okay, because embryos better because I had eggs. Embryos are like actually you can implant them. An egg needs to be fertilized, obviously.
Well, they still wanted to. It was her impression back then that still the embryos were better if they weren't frozen. So like where they were that batch. So she'd done a batch of embryos and she already did some went in her and it didn't work out. So she had 4 frozen left in the freezer, and she was like, I don't know. I think now we're going to look into adoption or whatever it was. And I'm like, why don't you just do one more? Because then you don't have to, even if they work, then you don't have this like freezer section that you have to like kind of feel bad about what you're going to do with it, whatever. And then from that, then she got her son.
Aww.
So and then after that, at 39, she got pregnant naturally with her daughter.
Amazing.
I know. She was like, I can't believe, she's like, she said to her husband, she goes, I feel so dumb, but I want to have a drink. And it's been so long since I have a period, but she'd always have the wrong, She's like, there's no way after literally like $75,000 worth of fertility that I'm going to. And she used to hate when people would say, you never know, you might get pregnant naturally. She'd be like, fuck yeah, that's the worst, like.
It's really hard.
And then that did happen.
And then the doctors are always like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to test them? And I'm like, I don't know. What would you do? And then, there's just not a lot of information out there.
Yeah.
So I try to talk about it in the book. But like, I remember the doctor asking me if I wanted to test them. And I said yes. But the testing often kills the embryo because they're like, trying to make sure it's good. And then they kill it.
Once it's in you, you mean? Or
no, like when it's in the
before?
Petri dish.
Okay.
So, what people won't say to you because probably it's illegal, but it's like if you're willing to get an abortion, if there is something genetically wrong with it, then you have a better chance of keeping those embryos intact.
And don't test them before.
Don't test them before. But it's like no one will tell you that, so you have to just like glean all this information. And some people maybe aren't okay having an abortion, but it's very challenging. And also, I didn't even understand how to get pregnant. I mean, in terms of like when you get older, it's like there's like 1 hour that you can get pregnant. So yes.
What's the test that they would do? That they always wanted you to have if you were over 35, where they would check and to make sure that everything's okay. Does that still exist?
I don't know. All I know is they kept calling me a geriatric pregnancy. Or
anything over 35 is that.
Oh, yeah. Like, like a geriatric man over 35.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so obnoxious. Like, when a man's 35, he's, like, barely ready for pet ownership. And, like, meanwhile, a woman's just, like, geriatric. Obviously, a man invented that, right?
Probably.
That term.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so obnoxious. And now we don't have to, like, be fearful that because remember, I feel like even 10 years ago, it was like, I'm in my 30s. I have to start meeting someone. I have to have babies, know? We're so lucky we have people.
Now, how long have you been married for now? A while, right?
Like 7 years.
And you're still in love, still laughing all the time.
Are you still in love, Heather?
I'm in it to win it.
What does that mean?
I remember I said
response.
to you last time you were here, I go, well, I think staying married is kind of my brand. And you
That is funny.
I have to give other people hope. No, I mean marriage and kids. And I've been married 20, let me see, what year are we in? 22 years.
20?
22. I got married in 2000.
You guys do seem like you
we have fun.
Are very simpatico though.
We have fun, but very annoying to work with your spouse. Mm-hmm. And it can be the best because there's nobody that like has your back and wants you guys to succeed more than your partner. But then on the other hand, it can be really annoying too. So I don't know what to say. I don't know if I can recommend it or not, but that's what we do. He works with me. So it's like, so we're in it to win it. And I do have to say, things do get better.
Okay. I
think things get easier as kids get older, and even when they're teenagers, like there were more struggles that my stepdaughter lived with us, and I loved having her in the home. But like, there was things that he would be like, "What is she doing?" And he'd ask me questions. I'm like, "Go ask her." Like, there was just things that were annoying. And then when she went off on her own, then it's like, okay, that issue of communication is now, I don't have to worry about it. Like, there's a reason why people actually want their kids to go away to college, because if they live at home, you are stressed every time they're not home. But if they're living in college, you don't expect to talk to them expect to talk to them all the time. So if they're out boozing till 4 a.m. or sleeping at a guy's house or whatever, and they're living at their dorm, you can still go to bed on a Tuesday in October and not know that you should be frantic. That is the difference.
So horrifying hearing you say this, because you're at such a different stage, and like, I don't know. And my daughter will say to me, she's like, "Mommy, I'm never gonna leave you.
How old is she now?
Always gonna live here 4." But she's just
4's
like
such a cute age.
And she's just like, "I'm your shadow," and she just follows me everywhere, and she's so cute. And soon she's gonna be staying out till 4 a.m. and I'm not going to know where she is. Oh my God, kill me.
Just make sure she gets into college so when she stays out at 4 a.m., it won't matter because you won't be tracking her.
Okay.
But I mean, the amounts of times that I had, and then my one son, he's like a giant. So I don't worry about him like I do my stepdaughter, right? And because I remember one time the kids, they were younger and they're like, "What do you worry about?" I'm like, the thing I worry most about is you guys being kidnapped, you know? But, and this is when they're little, I go, but at one point I won't worry about you being kidnapped anymore. But I will always worry about Mackenzie being kidnapped. So.
Oh my God.
I mean, yes. Well, because I'm like, eventually you'll like grow out of being kidnapped. Like you physically will be too tall to be kidnapped. The boys, you know?
I don't know. They take girls from gas stations in Riverside and put them in vans.
Girls, but I'm saying if
Teenagers.
you grow a boy that is 6'4",
right, a guy,
and is 250 pounds,
right,
it's going to be really hard to kidnap.
Damn it!
Unless
Should
they're
have
like
a guy.
Unless they're like in the mafia or something, they're not. Most likely, they are physically too big to be kidnapped. Someone the size of you, forever, so easy to grab, throw. I mean, you are very petite. So anyway, but one time my son just wasn't answering his phone. And I mean, I was just like, how are we? And my husband was scared, and he was pinging the phone, you know, and he still wasn't waiting. He's like, it's in his apartment and he's not answering. And he is a heavy sleeper, but I still was like, I guess he took a drug and he's dead. Like I literally, like, that's where your mind goes.
I mean, does it ever end?
No.
Moshe doesn't have this experience with. Is your husband like that with the kids, or is this a mom thing? Because this is something I really struggled with.
No, he was worried about it too. But I mean, he certainly went to bed. I had the phone right by my head, and I text him, and I text him so many times, and I'm like, I don't care what time it is, call me. And then at 2:30, he's like, I'm sorry, I fell asleep. And I go, so you didn't hear the phone pinging? He's like, no.
I feel like as a mom, it's just so easy to lose yourself in the minutia of your children, you know? And I feel like that's kind of why I wrote the book too, because I'm just like, I used to be this really cool person who was like, had so much joie de vivre, and I would like go to Thailand at the drop of a hat and, you know, go river rafting without a helmet on. And now I'm just like afraid and fearful, and, you know, trying to get back to that pre-motherhood Natasha is so challenging. And I notice my husband, like when it's I wake up with her in the morning all the time.
Yeah.
And then the other day I was like, I had like 5 days in a row because he was out of town. And I was like, can you wake up with her in the morning? And I get in there, and he's just like making himself this protein shake. And he's like shaking it up and adding all this stuff. And it's all for him. And I'm like, did you make her lunch? Did you make her breakfast? Did you brush her teeth? Did you like, he's going through life like, how can I enhance my life? And I'm like, I'm probably too much the other way. Like, I'll leave the house and not have like the right clothes on because I'm like just focused on her and getting all the chores checked off. So it's very frustrating. Do you have any advice?
Yes, I do. Here's the thing. Biological men and women that become parents, I don't care how hippy-dippy, liberal husband, whatever man you get, it will never, ever be the same. They will never have the guilt that you have. They will put their kid ahead of them. Like if a train is coming, they would like grab them. But if they're hungry and the kid isn't begging for food at that moment, they will feed themselves first.
And it's important for him to give himself his vitamin milkshake, I guess. But like, I wish I gave myself a vitamin milkshake, you know?
No.
But it was like, that was where his mind was.
I mean, listen, you're not alone. There's nothing you can do to really fix it except to maybe be more specific about what you want him to do on a day that you really need it. So let's say like you're doing a morning call, or you just are like, you know what? I just want to sleep till 9. Just be really specific about like, I want to know that like, you're going to get up, you're going to do this, you're going to shut the hall door so I can sleep. Like,
you got to delegate and be specific.
Otherwise you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So that's like,
I know you want them to be intuitive about it.
They're not because they don't have the same brain. And it's like, sometimes it's being a dick, but sometimes it's just being a man.
Yeah.
And it's just never going to be the same as what like, and also you and your husband will parent differently, and you will. Like you might be like, I remember early on, because Peter, was the main caregiver when I was at Chelsea Lately, and I'd come home at like 8 at night. And I just one day had to be like, you know what? They're probably not going to have as many baths as I'd like.
Really?
I mean,
submitted.
I just kind of was like,
I hear you though, because then he's happier. And if you're trying to micromanage how he's taking care of them, and the truth is,
yes.
Moshe got his vitamin milkshake, but also the child did get food.
Yeah, no.
Eventually,
my kid,
I just would have put her first.
Right. My kids were never starving.
Yeah.
They never were like getting colds or being sick. They went to school. They're nice.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, they're not on drugs. I don't know. I mean, I set the standard very low too. Like I was like, I always said, as long as my kids, are not hurting themselves or whatever, like, but it's still, it's just hard. It's just really hard, but it's fun. Let's talk about the fun stuff.
I was not prepared for it, but yes. Okay.
So you wrote this book. Now, what are like some of the things that you tackle in this book?
Well, I think that, not to... You said, let's make it fun. I was going to say parenting in an environmental panic when we're... Well, because everyone's always like, are you sure you want to have a kid? The world is burning. The world's on fire. But it's like, you can't just let the idiots have kids, right?
Yes,
we need to be like creating some sort of army of
also
people who believe in science.
Right. And we need people to also like run the world for us when we're old. Like you do need need humans. And also... I never understood that, like where someone doesn't want, like, so a million years ago when my mom was grocery shopping with all 5 kids, this was in the 70s.
That is so crazy that you would have to go, like, no Instacart, no, you're just like at the grocery store with 5 children.
I was like a baby, so she couldn't leave me alone. And then she like probably picked up my brothers from swimming. And so like they probably had wet hair and like, all 5 kids were at the grocery store with her. And she like totally cooked like a really good meal every night and stuff, which is crazy. And this woman comes up. Now this would have been like 1971. And she said, how dare you overpopulate the world like this? This is right here in Woodland Hills. And that was a big thing. People thought the world was overpopulating and that it was really gross that someone like my mother...
said that to your mother?
Yes, 100%. And so it's like how gross it is, how selfish of you to have so many kids and this kind of thing. So it's like, I also think it's weird when someone's like, well, I just think it would be so selfish to bring a child into this world. And it's like, that's fine if you don't want to have a child. But if you as a human, as a woman, want to experience motherhood, you should do it.
Yeah.
And do not worry, because the world has always been shit. You don't think the people in World War II were like, how the fuck can I bring a child into this? You don't think the people who were dealing with Vietnam were like, how the fuck can I bring... I mean, it's like 9/11, like the world has been shit since the beginning of time. There has always been awful people and awful wars and awful things happening. So if you can have a cute baby and have some fun in your own backyard in LA.
She's not going to hate me for having her?
No.
Oh,
I am always waiting for the person, and I predicted this many years ago, and it's now happened. The person that then sues their parents for giving birth. Like, I didn't ask for this.
I was going to ask you about that because I've been saying, sometimes I'll tell someone something in front of my kid. I'm like, oh, she said this. And she's like, Mom, don't ever tell people what I say.
Right.
And so I'm like, that's what I do on stage every night.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't really put that into a special because then she'll see it when she's your kid's age and hate me.
Well, what do
you do about that?
So in my first special, I did talk a lot about my kids, and there were funny stories about them. But I did think at that like elementary stage that that's like embarrassing. Like if I'm telling about a kid, you know, a poo-poo story or whatever, you know, like that's embarrassing to them. But I did say you can watch it when you're 16. Because when you at 16, you're going to also find the story about when you were 8 really fucking funny.
Oh, interesting. But I mean, how do you prevent them from looking at your special if it's on Netflix?
Well, they did. I remember.
Or on a clip on YouTube.
I do remember there was one. Somehow they did watch it. I didn't want them to, and they did watch it. And let me think. So it was 2014. So Brandon would have been like 7. Or something, and he was laughing really hard at the part where I was ripping on my older son Drake.
Oh my God.
And then when I got to the Brandon part, then my stepdaughter goes, "Yeah, Brandon got mad. Then he didn't want to watch anymore, and everything." So, you know, in the very beginning of like Instagram and stuff, I never exploited them. I only that's why a lot of people were like, you have kids? Like they'd watch me on Chelsea Lately. And I thought I talked about my kids on the panel, but I didn't like post them all over it because I kind of thought like safety wise, right? I shouldn't. Now I'm like, look at these people making so much money off of exploiting their kids. Like I should have done it more. But, but so then sometimes that they'd be like, don't film this or don't post it. I never, ever did. I never did. And even now I'll be like, okay, and I'll set them up and I'll be like, okay, we're going to, like we do a Christmas photo every year. And I'm like, okay, you guys, like.
Oh my God, I want to get back on your Christmas card list.
Okay, I'll get your address before you leave.
I was on it and then I stopped. Did you stop doing them?
No.
Did you cut me from your address, from your Christmas card?
No, but I might have had like
a
list of Chelsea Lately people, and
I didn't make the cut.
Yo, you're back on. If you think you're going to appreciate, if you're going to be appreciative of it.
Well, I had never seen your kids, and they're old, and it was like interesting. And also, you had a really cool pool.
Oh yeah, that was a good one when we built the pool. But yeah, like I prepare them for like, okay, we're gonna have to do this little thing. And then they're like cool about it. But they're boys, so they're not like.
Oh, you have all boys?
The two are boys, yeah. But so and none of them are like super thirsty or labely about things. So they're just like, they're on it, but they don't post. They like follow some people so I can like send them stuff. But they're not.
But a girl's not like that.
No, girls are all about it. So it's like, I don't know, you know? But I thought it was funny because I asked you what your daughter's name was, and you're like, I'd rather not say it. I'm like, oh my God, she's so classy. Like every other mother makes everything about their kid and everything. And I'm like, so you're really trying to like keep her identity private? You're like, what did you say?
Oh, I said, I just don't want anyone to steal the name. Because I don't want her to grow up with a bunch of people named her name.
Yeah.
You know, like there was like 9 Siennas in her class, and like everyone thinks they came up with like the coolest name, and then like everyone's named it. Like I think there were 3 Unas in my friend's class, like these names that you've never even heard before. I was at the playground, and there were 2 Artemises.
What does that name come? Artemises?
Artemis. There was 2 kids named Artemis.
Where does that even come from?
I don't know. Everyone's just trying to be unique. But anyway, I found a name that was like Jewish but cosmopolitan, but simple.
And you're Jewish?
Kind of glamorous.
Or just Moshe is?
I am Jewish. I converted to Judaism.
Oh,
and I
nice.
do have a chapter in my book about how I miss Christmas. And now I'm not exactly.
So you're so Jewish that you don't do a tree?
Moshe is not into it. So
he's not into doing the tree.
Right. And I wasn't either. I didn't really care. But now that I have like a 5-year-old, and you know, Christmas to me was one of the biggest, the only traditions I ever had growing up, you know?
Yeah.
Like in the Midwest, like Christmas was like the one time everyone got together. And so I still kind of feel this like affinity for it, more so now with a kid. But now I like have already converted, so I'm not exactly sure how to get it back.
So on the actual Christmas day, you guys don't acknowledge it at all?
Well, last year I went away with my brother and my daughter and a friend.
Yeah.
And we had a nature table. And
What's a nature table?
well, it's like there's maybe some tree-ish things on it.
Okay.
And like, a lot of like, it was more like things we found, objects like, pine cones and cool shells and, just kind of trying to create some sort of pagan tree situation that isn't a tree. And yeah, we gave them some presents because it was Christmas and they celebrate Christmas. Like something that's just you could still have the
but
feeling.
if you're home on Christmas morning, you and Moshe and your daughter just act like it's a regular day.
Well, she's only been like talking for 2 years, so it's like we haven't really gotten there yet. And now she knows what it is. But Hanukkah, it's like there's not. It's kind of hard to get excited about Hanukkah spirit.
I used to think Hanukkah sounded like so great because you're
Really?
guaranteed 8 gifts. Eight could be a lot. and then like each day, it's like milking it out. I like to milk at a birthday.
Right. You're
So
right.
I'm like, you milk it out. Every day it's exciting. And then also it's like you can still take your daughter and go to a beautiful hotel.
That is a good point.
And
I have
like,
Jewish friends who take their kids to like see the beautiful Christmas.
Yeah, and have like a cute lunch
That's
or a high
nice
tea
idea.
or something.
That's a good idea.
And like really like just celebrate the lights and stuff. And you don't have to explain
I mean, I don't
what
like
it's
Jesus.
about. Yeah, you don't have to explain the religious part of it. It's just like this is the time where people just kind of celebrate the end of the year.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of something I started thinking about more as I as my kid gets older.
And where are your parents in your situation?
Well, my dad just passed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And he was actually a really good grandpa, like not a great dad, but like you never it's kind of a wild card when you have a kid, like which of your parents are going to like show up and be cool.
And it's so interesting because sometimes a really good parent actually isn't into being a grandparent.
It's so
They're like, I
weird.
did my job. And then people are like, you suck as a grandparent, and then other people are like, holy shit, Mom. Like, what do you mean you're making a pot pie from scratch? You were the worst fucking mother ever. Like,
right.
And you're like, yeah, but that's why those people want that second chance to like, maybe they worked all the time or maybe they were just, so then they're like, oh my God, I get this second chance to like be this. Yeah. But there's no guarantee that your parent will be a great grandparent.
No.
And they didn't sign up to be a grandparent.
That's
They
true.
signed up to be a parent. So like if
That's true.
Yeah.
Moshe's mom moved here as soon as we had the baby, moved 3 blocks away from us.
Yeah.
She only comes over to see him.
To see
Moshe. I was like, oh, she wants to be closer to Moshe. I swear to God. I mean, she's deaf, so they do have a language barrier.
Right.
But it'd be nice if someone would teach her sign language, like Moshe, or it's been very hard for them to communicate.
Oh, that's right. He has a very unique.
Both of his parents were deaf. And his mom is still alive, so she's deaf.
And is he the only child?
No, he has a brother who's a rabbi.
Oh, wow. Oh, so then he is really Jewish.
Yes. And I want to say I do like his mother. Yeah. But she definitely does not. I mean, like, her screensaver on her phone is just the one son, Moshe.
Yeah.
Like,
that's it.
Not the grandkid, not the other son. Kid. Just Moshe. I was like, isn't that kind of weird that your mom has an adult picture of only one of her sons on her phone? But, you're right. She signed up to be a mother. And maybe she'll be good when the kid's a little older. But it's stressful when they can't communicate.
Are you on TikTok a lot?
I am not.
You're not? Okay, well,
I'm not down for brain rot.
Well, it's not that. It's like really interesting. It's just, first of all, they know what you like, and I don't know how they know what you like.
It's the algorithm, I know.
So then I see things that like interest me, and I'm like, how did I? And it'll only have like 800 likes or something. So it's not even like a viral thing, but they'll know to give it to me. Okay.
I know, that's so scary to me.
I know, but I'm like, well, I'm not a terrorist and I'm not a pedophile, so I don't care that you're watching me. Like, find out whatever the fuck you want. There's nothing. I've nothing to hide.
I wish there was like a tier of TikTok. Like you could sign up for like what's the highest echelon where they just like feed you like snobby interviews and like like
if you only like snobby interviews, then if that's the only thing that you're sitting through the whole 2 minutes of, they'll know
and you'll start getting
they'll
them.
know only give you snobby interviews. only give you baking, cooking, not any kind of other cooking. Like they'll know. So there was this this video I saw where this woman took this video and was like compared a man seeing his daughter for the first time as a bride, and how the comments were like, this is the most beautiful thing. This guy really is the greatest father ever, the greatest man ever. And then she shared when she got to see her son for the first time on his wedding day and their embrace, and the comments about what a fucking freak she is, what a loser, this, get a life, move on already, cut the umbilical cord, like all this stuff. And as like a mother of a boy, I say that too, because it's like you always hear about the awful mother-in-laws. And I'm like, one day I'm going to be that mother-in-law.
You're going to kill it, Heather. You're in it to win it, honey.
Like there is something weird, like just because you give birth to a boy, there's societal stigma that you can't be like super into that boy forever because they're supposed to be a man,
right?
And you should be like off.
I see.
But like, why can't she be? She can have a favorite son.
Well, I hear you, and she's great, but that's what else I'm scared about with TikTok. Like I read something on Instagram yesterday. It was just like, cute coastal town people have forgotten about. And just the comments were like, this place sucks. Fuck you. Now it's not a secret anymore. Fuck you, Instagram. Fuck you, New York Times. Everyone's just so angry. Why is everyone so mad?
The comments
of like just
the cruelest.
It was like a fishing community. Like, go visit it. Why?
So tell me some stuff in here that you have. Tell me some other stuff. Here it says, wait.
Okay, so well, you might find this interesting. At one point, I did do an interview with Moshe.
Yes.
For a chapter, because I'm like, why is he able to be like this? Like I told you, like he's
making a protein shake.
Well, he's just having fun,
living life. Yeah.
And we would get in so many fights because you get married to someone, you share a worldview. Like Moshe and I, we both believe in science. We both voted for Bernie Sanders. Like we have so much in common, and then we have the kid, and it's all minutia that we cannot agree on. He's like, she needs to wear a hat. No, she doesn't need to wear a hat. She needs.
Right.
It's like all of this minutia of the baby.
So dumb.
This is how you do the car seat. No, that's not how you do it. We would go camping. He's like, I want her close to the fire. I'm like, that pack and play is flammable. And he's like, but she's not getting the experience of camping if she's too far away from the fire. And so then it's just like constant. Every day it's something. And like, I didn't know this about him when we were together because we didn't have this like. It wasn't the same with dogs.
Yeah, no one will know. Yeah.
So then when I interviewed him...
I know when people think it's the same with dogs. It's not. I hate to break it to you.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't even
dogs
like
are
my
so
dogs
much easier.
Anymore. Get these dogs out of my life. I've got like 3 elderly chihuahuas. I'm just like so over it. Anyway, so Moshe... I interviewed him because he, likes to mansplain and talk about. I'm like, so what what is your view on motherhood? And I asked him about me, and then also fatherhood. And the thing he said that I really learned, because I do struggle with fear and love, and they're kind of interchangeable. Like they're like, you'll never know that you love something this much, but also I never knew I would be so fearful and so afraid of something happening to them.
Right.
And so Moshe said, my job is the chief fun officer. He's like the CFO of our family. And I'm here to make sure that everybody has fun. And I'm like, okay, like, because that's never my approach. My approach is like, how do I keep everyone safe? And like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And how can I prepare for that?
Right.
And that's exhausting. And that takes up so much mental energy. And the other thing he said to me that really struck a chord is he's like, if you're constantly worried about your child, there is no way that she is not psychically picking that up. Somehow that you're just always, and it's not good for her, and so that kind of helped me a little bit not be like so scared because I don't want to fuck her up.
But that's the first time he said that was when you interviewed him for the book.
Yes.
So that's really amazing.
Well, he was very articulate because like I don't know. Well, she was probably 3, but No, but
I mean that you got to a place of like opening up in a way that. Here you guys are spending every night, every day together, and he never said that to you. Not until he was like put on the spot. I think that's really great, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that he also doesn't understand, like, he's a real mess, and then now there's a kid. And it's like, I could handle his mess. It was kind of cute, I thought. But now it's like, now that there's like someone emptying the contents of a junk drawer every 2 feet, you know, my whole life, like a child, and then he's doing stuff, it's like, I can't really handle all of that.
Okay.
That's why I'm like not having another kid. Like I'm like maxed out for sure. And I love it, but I mean, I don't love his mess, but I think when I told
Did you
him
at
that,
one time? Did you think you might want to have a second?
no.
So-
I didn't want one.
Okay.
And he wanted 2, and I convinced him otherwise.
Oh, all right.
I was like, listen, we're not doing 2. It's not happening. I don't want to be a referee. I have a problem brother who kind of ruined our childhood growing up.
What was that about? Tell me about that.
He was just psychotic, you know?
Really psychotic.
Not-
like
not
diagnosed?
psychotic.
Was
No,
he
I mean-
older or younger?
He's younger. He lives now like in a van, you know.
Okay.
He's lived there most of his life. But he, you know, he would do crazy shit. We would wake up and he would like climb a tree and mow fuck you in the lawn, and I mean just like tell my
Wait, actually, right, fuck you in the
yes,
grass.
like he was just like
It's kind of clever, though.
he was crazy. Like I remember we went on a childhood vacation with my mom. You know, my mom was divorced, and we came to this lookout point. And my brother Louis, he must have seen that it didn't. The cliff had like a thing, so he jumped off and was like, "Ah!"
Pretending to?
Yes, and my mom started bawling. Me and my other brother were like life stopped.
How old was he when he did that?
Like maybe 10 or something. And then all of a sudden, after 30 seconds, he pops up and he's like, surprise! So like, it was like stuff like that all the time. And like, he must have had some kind of undiagnosed, I don't know. He didn't want to take any medication. I mean, you know, it was my mother like spent all of her energy trying to deal with that.
And where was he in the, so there was 3 of you, and what number
Yeah,
was he?
He was the middle child.
Okay.
But that made me so I'm like, I have one amazing child.
Let's not roll the dice.
Let's not roll the dice. Like also I couldn't have, I would have to, well, I'm totally open to adopting. And I think that adoption just seems like if you really want to make a difference in the world, that seems like such a real way that you can make a difference, because like, where is this kid going, you know?
Right.
But
Yeah,
I don't know what I can handle.
Well, so I'm the youngest of 5, and I definitely had troubling siblings.
You did?
Yes. So I'm very close to my sister, who's right above me. My 2 oldest brothers just passed this year.
Both of them?
Yes. But it's people that listen to my show all the time know all the stories. But like, you know, it was really hard growing up and seeing how much trouble they caused my parents. And so it's like, as a kid, my parents would be like, I'd wake up and they'd be in their pajamas and they were up all night because one of these teenagers didn't come home. And they'd be like, if you and Shannon ever disappoint us like this, my mom's like, we'll just kill ourselves. Like, we can't.
She said that?
Yeah, she's like, we cannot take 2 more that are fucked up and like not.
But did that
and
make
stressing
you
out.
be good?
Yes, 100%. Anytime
That is so hilarious
anytime,
to threaten your child with suicide.
and then like anytime like someone would offer me like any kind of drug or whatever.
You said no?
Yeah, because I was like, they did drugs and their lives were not good, even pot and stuff like that. And I was like, the minute you like in my head, and I'm not saying this don't right me, I'm telling you what my worldview was at my age based on my opinion. I thought like if I start smoking pot, I'm going to be a loser that doesn't go to college and like doesn't keep a job. So like for me, that's what was coming. So yeah, for the same, I kind of relate in that there were times where, and a little bit I was like, oh, I wonder, there's a little part of me that's like, I should have had like a 3rd child that I'd give birth to, which would be 4 for my family. And because I'm like, especially if I would have done it at Chelsea lately, like I would have had like a paid maternity leave and all that stuff. But then I wouldn't have been with that baby because I would have had to be going to work. So there were times where I was like a little bit sad as my kids got older. Should I had one more, whatever. But then there was also that thing at that point that I was like in my late 30s and I was like, I don't want to roll the dice because right now I have 2 healthies, and then what would I do? And also you don't know, you could give birth to a healthy baby and then there could be issues and later, and there's nothing you can do, you know, like that's just so I kind of was the same thing knowing that like but I was like the one that like nobody, I was the mistake. Like I was, like my mom was done after the 3, went on the pill, and then it was kind of a newer thing. It
was inevitable for you to come out, honey.
It was a newer thing. So then her friend got like a blood clot or something. So then she went off the pill and then had my sister and was trying to like do the, Catholic method of like counting and all that. Mm-hmm. And then got pregnant again with me. And my dad was like, are you fucking kidding? And you'd always be like, your mom couldn't count a calendar. Like it was always my mom's fault that she was pregnant.
Well, they didn't have apps then or anything.
Yeah. And then, so then I always knew that like I wasn't planned or anything, but I never felt like they didn't want me, like they doted on me. But it was like, we were so honest about everything in our family.
I love the idea of you being like, they have a real baby I can touch. That is so cute.
Yeah, because when you're the youngest, it's like, oh, that must be fun to have someone younger that you could like boss around or whatever.
I mean, believe me, I would obviously want to have a baby for my kid.
Yeah.
Because she's like desperate for, she like always says that her friends are her play cousins. Like she clearly wants to have something beside, like she's asked me before, I wish I had a sibling, and it's sad. But like she doesn't understand, like we can't all go to Japan. If
exactly. I mean, that's the best part of my friends who have one child. My other friend, she comes from a huge family, and she and her husband just had their one son who's a freshman in high school right now. And I mean, he's a really great kid, and they do have he does have cousins and stuff, but still their family is their family. It's just 3 of them. And I mean, it is nice. I mean, they would get invited to things that we wouldn't get invited to because we're too many fucking people.
Oh, I was at my dentist after I had my kid, and he's like, are you having another one? And I was like, no. He's like, one child's not a family. My dentist told me this.
That's rude.
I know, but I mean, it is, though. Like, it is a family.
Is it annoying, though, when you had how many times? Because I would have to stop my mom from doing that, where she'd be like, to that friend that had the one, she'd be like, oh my God, he's so cute. You should have another, da-da-da. And I'm like, Mom, shut up. Like, that is just as rude as asking someone, are you going to have kids? Like, I think that's a new thing people need to stop doing.
Asking people if they want kids.
Or asking, are you going to have another?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
what you mean.
Just because you have one that's like 1.5, don't be asking that. Let them volunteer that information. Because a lot of people do just want the one. And it's like, and it's nice to have 2 and that they kind of can play with each other, but it is a lot more chaos.
Yeah.
And it is much easier to go on a trip. And you only like need 1 hotel room.
Yeah, we just put her in the bathroom.
Yeah.
We do.
In a little pack and play thing.
Well, when she was a baby.
Yeah. And what have you dealt with what else? How are like other mothers? Do you feel like, are you in a school that is like hippy dippy Hollywood people and you all get along, or do you feel like the outsider?
It's hard because, we're used to hanging out with like the funniest people ever.
Yeah.
So it's hard to just like hang out with moms,
I know.
No offense. But let me just say I have not made that many mom friends that easily. I mean, I think I'm like kind of dark. You know what I mean? Like, actually, I mean, it's hard because, we're...
I tried really hard and then I just one day gave up.
You did? Mm-hmm. You tried hard?
I thought I tried hard. I did.
And they just weren't having it.
Well, there was part of it, being completely honest, where I was like, why aren't they like a little more excited than other fucking McDonald?
Right, you're like...
Like, I'm like, do they not watch Chelsea Lately? Do not get that I'm like doing stand-up at like the Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Center? Like, they don't want to go in a group and like hear me talk about like mom shit. Yeah. And then I kind of was like, no, they don't care. Because they have their own thing going on and they really don't care.
Yeah.
And then when I finally was like, wow, well, this wasn't really what my high school, this is not what I thought. There's a little part of me that's like jealous that my sister has made so many friends and we're involved in so many different like school mom things. And I just wasn't.
You know what I do? I sign up and then I have to cancel. Because I'm like, I want to help. And then... work comes up or your schedule changes or, so it's like, I want to be there in spirit. I don't really know what the answer is to that.
I remember my son was like in 7th grade, my older son, and he never made me feel bad for being busy. My younger son, now that he's older, I'm like, do you remember when you'd say this? And like, and he'd be like, yes. I'm like, why? Why did you make me feel bad? Like, I'd be like, let's say our prayers tonight. And he's like, I pray that my mommy doesn't have to work. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, why you make me feel so bad?
My daughter does that too. She wants to be with me all the time. And like, I just told my husband, I said, I feel so bad because so much of my time with her, I'm trying to wrap it up. You know, like she's like, come sit with me while I take my bath. And like the babysitters are, I'm like, I have a Zoom, I have to go. You know, but I feel like that energy, I'm doing so much and it makes me feel bad because then when she's gone, I'm like, I love her so much. I just want to hang out with her. But I have work to do and it's so hard to make that balance. You think the kids are making us feel guilty?
They do, but
I pray that she doesn't have to go to work.
I mean, I do think so. And I mean, I can't go back and think like, oh, you know, would the kids have turned out differently like if I didn't do Chelsea lately? Like I can't. I mean, it is what it is. And I knew I had to do that in order to have a career after that. Like if I was like 37 or something when the opportunity came and I'm like, if I don't take this, I'm going to be too old to like get back into it.
And it's good modeling for your kids to like see.
Oh, my kids, like, we have a great relationship and there's
like
no like guilt or anything. But there were times when like I would kind of hear things or think like my younger son, I think, would have benefited from me being around more. My older son would have been fine no matter what.
And they had their dad. A lot of kids just have a nanny.
Right, exactly.
So the dad is kind of everything, you know?
Right.
It's an extension of you.
And then, but this one woman, so I signed up after Chelsea Lately was done. I was like, I'm going to be more involved. I missed all these years of poetry readings and stuff. And so I signed up for like a bunch of shit and like didn't put it in my calendar, totally forgot. and then, so I get like this email, not a phone number or a text. Like, how the fuck you think I'm checking my email? And they're like, you forgot to bring the plates or something for this thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And it's already like 1:30. Like the lunch is already come and gone. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then it like happened again. And I felt so bad, but I was like, whatever. And this woman comes up to me at Costco and she's like, you forgot the napkins again. And I think she was kind of joking. But it was like shortly after one of my parents had passed, and I just like fucking burst into tears. Aww. And I was like, and then I'm like, I'm so sorry now. Now you feel terrible, and you are the one that remembers napkins, and I'm not. Like, you shouldn't feel bad. The moms that do all the stuff, they have every right to be mad at the moms like me that weren't running the school and then like wanted to be a part of it and wasn't great at. Like, I get it, where they're like, you know what, can you just not?
Well, those people like, don't have careers usually, right?
Right, but I also want to say, like, I see sympathy for them too, because then it's like, but then there'd be part of me where I'd be like, okay, I could never go to anything. Can I just go to this one thing? Like, you guys have gone to everything for 7 years. Can I just be the one of the 4 moms that gets to go on this one field trip? And they still would be like, not great about it. And I think one time I basically did start to say that.
I mean, some of these moms, though, they might be more not talented, but they just have a larger capacity. Like, I think that some people like me and you, like, we'd probably be good with 3 hours a day with the kids. Whereas, like, some people could probably do 8 and not lose it.
I'm also, like, horrible at, like, any kind of crafts.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm just like not into it. Like I've never been good at art anyway.
Moshe will always, he says the same thing. I like it, but he's like, he'll immediately when it's his turn, take her somewhere. That's like all he can do is like take her to the horses, take her to a movie, take her to a fair. Like he needs to go out and do something.
Yeah.
He can't do an activity either.
Yeah.
It's really challenging.
So tell me what else. What else are you hoping that people get out of this book? What are your 3 best tips as being a mother?
Well, I will say, like, raising a child, because this is coming from a kind of a cis-het, very, the males are this and female. It's just my experience is that. But, like, I would say as a woman, I would have to have 5 drinks and be an amputee for my parenting style to be equal to that of a sober father. Like, Moshe would be like, when we first had her, he was like, can we just leave her in the car? And I'm like, no, that's like a famous thing you don't
Wait,
do.
to do what? To go to dinner or like?
Yeah, or he's just like, we're just
'Cause
going to
she was
run to
asleep?
Starbucks. Yeah, and I'm just
Oh.
like, no. He's like, there's a valet guy like right there. I'm like, no, just like having to deal with that. And then I was finally like, okay, I'm just going to go have a coffee because I was breastfeeding. I was like, I need to get out of the house. Can you bathe her? And I come back and he just has her in the sink with the dishes. Like just doing it all. And I was like, do not put Dawn on my baby. Okay. She is not a duck after an oil spill. But like every day it's like having to deal with this. Like if you and I were raising children together, that would never happen.
Right, of course
'Cause
not.
we like
yeah.
think the same.
Right.
But I'm sure there are male and female who think the same. But like it's just
Or yeah,
it's just been such a challenge.
right. I remember my friend and her husband, and they weren't teenage parents, okay? They were like in their early 30s, okay? Makes a lot of money, went to college, and this was their second child. Okay, so she was off with the first child, and the second child was a baby. And he was to watch the baby for the day. So she comes home after a few hours, and this is years ago, okay, before like Postmates and stuff. So she sees like a bag from like a Mexican place. And she goes, "Oh, you took Kelly to go to the whatever burrito mania or whatever." And he goes, "No, she was napping. I went to go get a burrito."
What?
She was like,
You could get your kid taken away for that.
believe me, my friend went fucking off.
He didn't know.
He was like, "What?" He goes, "What?" It was 10 minutes. And it's like, then she had to be like, "What if there was a fire?"
See, it's so scary
Like,
because you
what
can't
if
trust that.
What if
judgment.
you going to get the burrito got hit by a car and nobody knew this baby was here for 3 hours? Like, do you understand? Like, you have to say all those things because someone's like, "What? The task takes 10 minutes." Like,
But
and
see-
the kid is sleeping for 2 hours.
That is insane.
But that is a man.
I know. And then it's like, so then you've got to preemptively be thinking like, oh, okay, wait, what, sneaker waves are a thing? Okay, well, what if a wave comes when we're on the beach and like takes over our like everywhere. I start like going like, what's the worst thing that can happen?
When the
and how-
tsunami happened, I was so obsessed with the tsunami. Anytime we were on the beach, I would be like, I would look past the waves and I'd be like, and I would start to just imagine a huge tsunami and which child I would grab. And like, you know.
Do you have a favorite?
They've switched over the years.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Because someone told me that our kid would switch back and forth from me to Moshe.
Yeah.
But I seem to be the main person she likes all the time.
I think with people that have a few kids, I think there are kids, and when people say, "Do you have a favorite?" and they're like, "Oh, she was mom's favorite," or whatever. I think that when you give birth to your kids, along with them looking like you, some of them have personalities. Like, let's say you have 3 kids. There might be one that has a very similar personality to you, which might be a problem, or it might be a personality maybe like your spouse's, and it's very compatible to you.
Oh,
And so then
interesting.
you were like, that one we just jive better. That, like, I remember like my mom with my sisters, she was funny and she'd say like some snarky, bitchy things. And it would be, my sister would get very upset. My other sister sometimes would be upset. And I never cared.
Interesting.
And so we probably had the best, I think we had. She had a great relationship. She loved all her kids. But like, I think my mom and I were the most similar and had the greatest relationship. And then like, kind of same with my dad, because I sort of had this personality that was like, the good attributes of both was in this, and I could kind of like, and I think with my older son, he has like the logic and the math brain of my husband, which I don't have, but then he has like the funniness of like me, and he actually like wants to hear like the stories and the juicy scoop and stuff. He'll be like, "Just tell me the story," or whatever. So like for a boy, like you don't think, sometimes people think, "Oh, you can't have that with a boy." But you can. And like, I mean, my other son, 16, I still love talking to him and everything. But just with my older son, who's 20, we're just at like a more adult level of conversation that I kind of just enjoy talking to him Like I could do an 8-hour road trip with my older son. And
Really?
like my husband was like, I can't believe that, this kid that we know and his mom is driving from LA to North Carolina where the kid's going to school. And I'm like, why? He's like, I mean, it would just make so much more sense to fly and rent a car and da da da. And
Mom's
I'm
like, please talk to me for
yes.
16 hours.
I'm like, I could go across the country with Drake.
Aww.
Or with Brandon. Like I would like, when do you have 8 hours to talk and listen to stuff and like look up things?
What did your mom do to make you like want to live next door to her? Is there any like, besides tell you she was going to commit suicide if you tried drugs?
I didn't necessarily want to live next door to her.
Oh, okay.
Was, we first lived in Sherman Oaks when my husband owned a condo. And then I remember I was looking for little houses around Sherman Oaks. And he goes, well, why are we looking here? If we're going to buy a house, why wouldn't we be closer to your parents? He said it. And I was like, all right. So then we found a house here in Woodland Hills. And then we were like kind of in the market for thinking, should we go to the next level where we have a little bigger house? And my mom was like, oh, they were in real estate. So she's like, oh, we're going to get the listing of the house next door because the man is older and he's going to, go to a place. And I'm like, well, I think we'd want that house. And my mom's like, well, why would you want that house? It's the smallest house on the street. So tired. And she's like, and it has no pool. I'm like, that's exactly what we want. We want the smallest house on the best street. We'll build stuff and we don't need a pool. We'll just use yours. And then eventually we'll build a pool. And so then it like all worked out. But it was like, it was scary for my parents. Like they didn't want to be like, everyone loves Raymond. They were like so respectful. They never knocked on the door unannounced.
Good.
Ever. And my mom would be like, would you like to come over for dinner Tuesday? And like that type of thing. And then there would be times where I'd ask her to sit and they'd be like, no, we're tired.
That's cool.
Because they were older. So they were like, there were times when they just
Moshe's
couldn't
family
do it.
always babysits when I ask them.
Yeah.
But it's like once every 2 weeks or something.
Right.
know?
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you came. Natasha, tell us everything besides the book. You have your podcast. What are the
I have a
projects that you're
podcast.
doing?
We'd love to have you on. People Ask Advice. It's called the Endless Honeymoon Podcast.
Yes, I follow your Instagram and I see your clips.
Okay. Moshe, I sometimes I find it a nice way to just hijack him with things I'm upset about and then crowdsource it and see who agrees with me.
That is such a good idea. Because it's always like, I remember there was this TV show that like did make it, but I thought it was a brilliant idea. I want to say like Jerry Seinfeld might have produced it or something. Or Tom Papa was the host.
I remember that.
And it was like, because it was that feeling where when you're fighting with your spouse, you're like, if there was cameras, there's no way
That's what that show
the
is about.
world
That's
would
what
not, that the world would not be 100% on my side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it was such a good idea. It just didn't like execute right. I don't know. Maybe it would never. But it was that idea that a couple would come and tell their argument or whatever, and then the world would say who is right, who's wrong. But yeah, you can do that with your show a little bit.
And sometimes I won't, but I mean, I try to not tell him and then just see what he says. Sometimes he cuts it out, but usually, like he thinks it's okay to use my toothbrush.
Every day or like on a trip?
He says when he can't find his, but it was every day. And then like every time I'd grab my toothbrush, it would be wet and like dripping wet. Would you like that?
No, but I will be honest about one thing.
You allow this?
No, Peter would never use mine. But there have been times like on a trip or something where I either forgot it or I was lazy. And I have used his, but I've wiped it dry and I've never told him.
Once in a while, but he's chaos, so he's like can never find it.
Okay.
So and then he got so.
How do you lose your toothbrush? I mean,
he just is like brushing his teeth in bed and then throws it somewhere.
Oh,
Who knows?
Geez.
But he was so humiliated by the comments section of everyone telling him like how disgusting and how it's like. So those kind of things have been very effective. Better than therapy. So we have our podcast, the Endless Honeymoon Podcast, and I'm just really excited for this book to come out, and I'll never have to think about it again.
Did you?
It took me 3 years to write. I did not enjoy it, but it is very funny.
And
because there was the pandemic, so I had nothing else to do. So then any stand-up.
So did you already have the deal before the pandemic?
Yes.
You already had the book deal.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that would have been the most, I think the people that had to write a book during the pandemic or give birth to a baby. Maybe not give birth. Okay, this is the most ideal situation. Let me know. And someone will go, you're wrong, Heather. Okay. If you had just given birth like March 1st, okay, and then everything shut down March 20th, right? And then I think for those people, and their husband could stay home and like work from home, and maybe you were planning on staying home, or you got, after your 3 months, you got another, whatever, 6 months at home. Those people, I think that's the most perfect that's the most perfect situation.
Okay, well, here's what you're not thinking of. I had no childcare, so I couldn't write.
Oh, and you had a toddler.
I was breastfeeding. So I found ways, but like it wasn't, and I really didn't want her to watch TV under 2.
No, I meant
and
either
then Moshe would have her, yeah.
Either you have the baby and you don't have to do anything but take care of the baby. Or you have to write the book and you don't have anything to do
you
except
don't have
write
a baby.
the book.
You have to write a book about a baby without
no
a baby.
No baby. Like you just got to like get a book deal, but it's just all you had to do. Then I think that would be easy.
Well, whatever I did was not easy, but
Yeah,
it was. I'm
because
glad
you
it
had both.
exists.
You had both. That's not. You got to have one or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you thought it was, but you enjoyed. But when you actually got like on a roll, did you enjoy it?
Yes, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed, thinking about things in different ways that I hadn't before.
Yeah.
I never thought of my nana with 7 kids and like how she did it, and like I feel like I'm from like 3 generations of women who ironed for men.
Yeah.
And just being able to like not be like that, like you start to see like you compare yourself to your relatives, and we have come a long way as women. And just like examining things from different sides. Like I remember when Roe v. Wade, like when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, I was with my friends, and it was during the pandemic, and they had like a 10-year-old, and the mom immediately told the daughter, she's like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and now we're never going to have rights, and they're going to take away our rights. And then the daughter started bawling, got in the fetal position, was like, I hate Donald Trump. And me and my husband were like, oh my God.
Wait,
like,
you were witnessing it?
Yes.
Oh.
But then, so I kind of judged my friend for that.
Yeah.
But then after I thought about it, I'm like, we have to tell girls what's happening,
Yeah.
Like, these are 10-year-old future women. Like, if someone would have told me that when I was 10, I would have been fucking pissed. And I think that it's just, just examining things from so many sides. Like, a book really makes you, like, really kind of, expand these thoughts. So you start to think about things in a different way.
I remember another thing that you said, which was so great, because you kind of on stage would dress kind of timeless, like kind of almost 1940s, 50s, whatever. Like, and you're like cute, like the way you have this, like your little coat, like you have great style.
Thank you.
And you said something like, something to the effect of where it's like,
If this is a rape joke, don't say it.
no, where you said, why did we have like, thanks a lot, women's rights, because in the past we just like had to be just housewives. And that would have been so nice to just like.
Oh,
what was
wish
the story?
that like now we have to work, and it used to be we could just like, if we wanted something, we would just twist our dimples and act like a baby and be like, please, Mr. Sweetie, buy me a dress. And then if he didn't give you what you wanted, your husband, you would just faint. Like they would have couches made just for fainting.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's, you think things. I wouldn't say that on stage now, and I'm glad I have a career now. But
Right.
I think that, just glamorizing free time.
Yes, and I mean,
Hustling was hard, like when we
Right.
came up, we really had to hustle, and that's exhausting.
yeah. But I always say that too. Like I'm always like, oh my God, like if all I had to do was just like make a casserole all day
You'd
and
be
like
so
keep
bored
a clean
and you'd
house.
be drunk.
No, that's what I'm saying. You'd be drunk. You'd get drunk. Like a lot of housewives became like alcohol. I remember my mom, my dad's brother's wife. He was like a high-ranking officer in the army, and she's like, oh my God, she was so lucky. She had the twins, and she had these German nannies, and she lived in Germany, and like da-da-da. And every night they would go and have martinis at the officers' club. She's like, but then she turned into an awful alcoholic, and her kids hated her. Like,
Really?
yeah, and it was like one of those type of things. Like people's always like thinking about that time in life and how different it is. It's like
I think motherhood is probably very fulfilling for some women, and
Yeah.
for some women, it's like part of their journey.
yeah.
Maybe.
I always remember I saw this when I was pregnant with Drake. I saw this Oprah, and I was like pretty close to giving birth and had every intention of like doing everything that I thought I was going to do with my child, and then Oprah was like, this is a very serious Oprah. I'm talking to women who don't like being mothers. Yeah. And they were like really honest. And they were all saying
None of them liked it?
They just all talked about the struggles of it. And as I watched.
I hope that's not how I sound.
Not at all.
Okay,
because
good.
when I watched it, I was like, don't they see what the common denominator is?
What was it?
Breastfeeding.
They didn't like breastfeeding.
They didn't get that it was breastfeeding, but I got that all their stress was being caused by breastfeeding, and they didn't figure it out.
Well, here's a juicy
So then
scoop for you.
So then when I couldn't breastfeed, I was like, fuck it. I'm not even going to try. Like, because the stress they got where they ate broccoli and now the kid's miserable, or their kid isn't getting enough food, or the kid's strapped to them for 1 year and they can't do anything, and the husband feels like he's not doing anything. And so when I shared that, like in my book and stuff, and talked about it, people are like, thank you. My God, why don't more people like normalize not breastfeeding?
Well, yeah, you forget that the whole reason they had formula was so that in the 20s, women in the jazz age could go hang out and party. They didn't have to be like at the kid. It was like a feminist thing to give you the formula. And
what's your juicy scoop? You said.
Oh, I have a juicy. Well, so basically, this might come across weird because I had like tons of milk flowing from my tits, and it was just making me so miserable because I felt like I couldn't live my life. I was like, after like 4 years of trying to get pregnant, a year of being, or 10 months of being pregnant, and then the baby's here. Now I still can't leave my house without like leaking my tits into a sink. Like I was at the ArcLight, like, leaking my boobs, like just to go to a movie. And I really didn't like it. And I asked my doctor, my gynecologist, he's this really funny gay guy, and he's just like, oh, honey. I go, how long do I have to do this? And he was like, oh, you don't have to do it at all. I just gave my kid Similac. And I was like, well, like what? And then I was like, well, maybe I should. He's like, a month is good. And I was like, okay. And then I asked the guy, or the pediatrician, because I'm like, okay, she has more experience with, the actual baby, not just getting it out of my vagina. And she was like, I think 3 months, she said it's overblown, the effects, and 3 months is plenty of time for it to sop up the nutrients that are flowing through your highly productive milk titties. I don't remember how she said it, but so I stopped, and I had to like put cabbage in like it wouldn't stop flowing, and I was just like, it was like a very emotional decision, but I was like, and I had friends who were like, well, I'm just not going to stop because I don't want my kid to get sick, and I'm just like I do. But this is just making me not be able to, I need to be back to who I am, to be the mom I can be. And so I stopped, and the woman did not want me to stop. I had to hire a lactation specialist, and she had me, do you know how you stop? You put cabbage.
Okay.
You had to like shove cabbage in your tits for like 2 weeks, and it just slowly starts to stop up the milk for some reason. But my kid's been totally healthy, and I didn't have to put myself through that misery because it made me unhappy. And I think you're right. Like, sharing those stories is very helpful because I didn't even have a choice at the hospital. Like, the hospital that I went to was run by La Leche League. I'm not saying, I'm glad that it was, but like, everywhere you look,
hardcore.
They're just like pictures, and they're like human milk for human babies. And the second she was born, they put her right to my boob, and I was unconscious. It was like, no one was like, do you want to try breastfeeding? I mean, but again, I'm glad that it happened, and hopefully she was able to, get something from it. But
no, it's, I mean, I will say this, that like, so yeah, I didn't breastfeed, and Drake is 6'4", 6'5". This is the truth. He has never had an ear infection, and only once was he on antibiotics, and we think he probably had COVID. And it was like early COVID. It was January.
That's the only time he was ever on antibiotics?
That was the only time he seemed sick in his entire life.
What?
I have looked on his scalp for a 666. I'm like, what the fuck is this person? And he was not breastfed. And my other son had a few more colds and stuff like that, but he was not. And so with my second son, I told them off the bat, I'm not breastfeeding. And they were like, okay.
Oh, you told the hospital.
I told the hospital. I'm like, so feed him and like wake me up when he's like done, and I definitely want to cuddle with him, and I want to feed him the bottles and stuff, but I'm not going to try because it didn't work for me the first time. And then with my sister Shannon, she was like, I want to stop breastfeeding. And I go, then do. And she goes, but I have to call them. I go, who's them? She goes, La Leche League. They said I can't stop breastfeeding unless I call them. I'm like, okay, Shannon, you're a 35-year-old attorney.
She's afraid of La Leche League.
I'm like, you live in a gated community. They're not going to be able to get in.
That is
Give
so
your child
funny. They
the
might,
bottle.
You never know.
Yeah,
They're pretty passionate.
You're going to be fine. Like, so, but I also think if someone loves breastfeeding
Of
and it's
course.
supernatural, and even if they want to go to like, I don't like when people are overly judgy about someone going too long. Like, your kid's not going to be on your tit in college. So, like, I know everyone jokes about it when a kid can say it, they're too old. Again, not our business. Like, whatever. Don't judge me. I won't judge you.
We've got to be entering a new state of the world where people don't say that you have to do things how they did them.
Right.
What is that?
Yeah.
With religion, with abortion, with breastfeeding, with let everyone do things their own, as long as they're not hurting people.
Right.
Oh, I guess they would say that you're hurting someone by having an abortion, I guess. But it's not like anyone's offering any help to this unborn child. People are like, don't have an abortion, but they're not like going to give you money to help you raise it. It's very confusing to me how everyone...
but it's exactly that, in that, and people feel the right to say it because 10, 15 years ago, you couldn't write a comment and you didn't share every thought you had at every moment. And, like you would just see something on TV or see something in paper and be like, well, I don't agree with that, Betty. Well, neither do I. And then that would be it. And you would go leave. You wouldn't go, blah, 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 do a TikTok, da-da-da-da. I don't like that this person said that. You would just
check the comments.
Yeah, you would just go on with your life and be like, oh, I don't like that person, or I don't agree with that policy. And like that, okay, what, yeah. Well, Natasha, thank you for this fabulous conversation. I loved catching up with you. The World Deserves My Children. You can pre-order it right now. When is it available?
It's out November 15th.
Oh, around the corner. Okay, great.
And thank you for having me, Heather.
Thank you. I'm excited to read it.
I love to see all of your success. And
thank you, too. I
seem
love
like
to
a really,
see your dimples. I seem like a
really good mom.
Oh.
And I love that your mom kind of passed it down to you.
Yes, but again, like
it feels like healthy.
Nobody's the perfect parent. You will learn, and every generation learns from the past, so you can always improve on it.
And I love that you fulfilled yourself and didn't feel like you needed to stay home with your kids just because they were asking you to. That's very inspirational for me because it's tempting.
Well, the day that he asked me, I think I was going to be on the round table, so I was like, oh, fuck no. I'm getting hair and makeup done, and I believe $348. So, no.
Those were the days.
Yes, those were the days, darlings. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Heather.